Okay, so this is day 2 of working in the Haggadah. Didn't have a ton of time today, but a little bit of progress. I'm feeling a little less overwhelmed. I'm looking at things and I'm looking at real examples. I found this old one that I got from PJ Library. That is, I'm taking some ideas. I'm getting some ideas of what not to include. I'm going to start with a checklist, I think, which I took that directly from the PJs. And it says here, candles. I definitely want to light the candles. I think it's cool. This is something we never used to do in Passover, but I want to do that. The kippah is optional. It's kind of fun. The kids like to dress up. Gender optional, all that. I like that. And then all the stuff. We're going to be traveling, so I don't know what kind of Seder plate we'll have, but the one kind of fun thing is the most important thing, right? This checklist is the first page, really, and it says the most important thing is really the Seder. The only thing you really need in the Seder is your families, your friends, this idea of gathering the clan together. So I think for now I'm going to start with that checklist, which is going to lead to a next new section, which is specifically a tribute. It's tribute to my mom, of course, which in many ways this project is all about her. But also, just a couple of weeks ago, my sister-in-law's dad passed away, Aaron, and in the last minute, her mom is joining us as well. So my mother-in-law is going to be there, and my brother's mother-in-law is going to be there, and so I'm going to mention the departed and maybe invite one of the recent bereaved for Aaron to talk about him. I will probably just mention the fact that Aaron is such an important character in this story of the Exodus. And so the candle lighting, I talked about this a little bit before. There's, Ladlik Ner Shel Yom Tov. I mean, that's quick and nice, and it just makes it official, lighting the candles. And then Shehecheyanu, which Shehecheyanu is actually one of my favorite prayers. The fact, again, put God aside, but just praise the circumstances that have brought us to witness this day, I think is really powerful, and I want to explain that. Now, nothing here changed so much. I put the spring tradition before taking turns to speak because this is still kind of an intro, and we'll see. I still don't know if it's going to stay or maybe it's going to go before. Right now I just swapped these two, the taking turns to speak. And actually, I'm starting to think about this frog as being a bad idea because kids will just start playing around with it. It's going to become a hassle. It's better to just name whoever has a role. I'm starting to think. I'm not sure yet. But then we'll get into the Kadesh Uchatz and all this. And this is, there's not really much in those. Like, the funny thing about those 15 steps that I'm realizing now is, a lot of them are really, really very short. It's a prayer and that's it. And then the Magid is really the entire Seder, so that's interesting, but there's not a lot to put in there. The explanation of the Seder plate, of course, is going to come right before the Maror. It just makes sense. And not Maror, Karpas. I always confuse the two. Karpas. Yachatz, alright, there's going to be a little bit of a spiel about the Afikomen, but that's fine. And then, alright, so the Magid. And really what I spent the time today, was sparring, trying to wrap my head around is, I'm like, alright, the Magid is really kind of long. And there's always the thing about the 4 brothers, which I've always had a problem with, or not really. Like, it's supposed to be this kind of whimsical part of the Haggadah. There's role-playing involved. And then it just never lands. Like, you never really get the point of it, and it just seems outdated. Even when you try to reform it and you cast it, and doing that. So this is really what I was focusing on. I just want to take you through my process. I was just using GPT today. Let's go back to the top of it. This was just, here I started here. So I just started with what are the more interesting contemporary alternatives for the young children for the Four Sons section. I was starting to think, okay, how can we make this more exciting? And GPT gave me some interesting answers. He says 4 types of kids: the curious kids, the challenging kid, the quiet kid, and the literal kid. Now these are really just, it's just a different way to say wise, wicked, simple, and the one who doesn't know how to ask. So that's not exactly what I was looking for, but he offers animals, and that's actually the one that I originally chose and went after, because I'm like, oh, this is really cool. The wise one can be an owl, the wicked one can be a fox, the simple one can be a puppy, and the kitten one was the one who doesn't know how to ask, curious, but too shy, so that's interesting. Superhero, I just hate. I want to stay away from those things if I can. I know it's part of pop culture in America, but and feeling-based version, the excited, the frustrated, the confused, the quiet child. Okay, nah. This is just another variation of the original, just a slightly different way of saying things as far as I'm thinking. So GPT tells me it can help me to write mini scripts or illustration ideas. Then I'm like, all right, let's zoom out for a second. I'm trying to think about what part of the Haggadah would come in. I thought it was probably going to be in Magid, but it says traditionally it goes right after Avadim Hayinu and before the 10 plagues. So I said, all right, I was kind of convinced enough to roll with it. I'm like, let's say we're going to include this section. I said I like the idea of the animals. I want to make it really short and sweet, though. And then give me little emojis. The owl asks wisely, why do we do these things each year? She loves to learn and lend an ear. Oh, I didn't even notice it. It was rhyming it for me. That's cute. It's not going to work because I'm doing tri-language, but it's cute. Fox says sharply, "This isn't for me. I don't belong." But deep inside, he still plays along. The puppy asks simply, "What's this? What's that? Can you explain?" He's learning slowly with no disdain. And then the kitten stays quiet, too shy to speak, but eyes are wide. She listens close with love and pride. Would you like this in English only? Is it going to translate? I'm like, all right, I'm not just slow down. This is one thing that drives me crazy about those AIs and working with them. Like, they just rush way too fast into output. I always have to slow them down and deliberate. So that's what I'm doing here. Can you go back to the basics and explain to me the thesis behind this section? Because I'm like, all right, this is all cute and nice, but like, what value is offered? So when I'm asking them, basically tells me not all children are the same and each one engages with the tradition differently. So the Haggadah presents 4 types of children. And that's based on the verse from the Torah, and you should tell your child on that day. Basically, that is Vehigata levinecha. Right, that is the whole reason why we're doing the Seder. Why we're engaging in this storytelling thing. Why it matters is interesting. It shows the value of personalized teaching even 2,000 years ago. It invites us to empathize with the learners, including those who challenge or even reject the tradition, and all that. And I end up getting to a different, it still doesn't resonate with me, but I can be kind of slow sometimes. And so I want to break it down. And I'm not getting to the core of it until a little bit later, but you'll see that. Let's go on one son at a time. What makes the wise son wise? I'm just going to jump here to in short. The wise one is wise not just for knowing, but for wanting to understand more with intention, humility, and curiosity. And I don't know if I found this very helpful, but because it prompted me want to dive next into the fox, the wicked one. See, I might have just abandoned this, but it prompted me, and I said, okay, let's go in. And then in the traditional Haggadah, the wicked child says, what does this service mean to you? The issue isn't that they're asking, is how they're asking. The word is to you, as in not to me. The wicked child is actually engaged. They're at the table, they're paying attention, and they're asking a real question. It's just laced with skepticism. Now, in my version, what GPT gave me is this isn't for me. But he's still sitting at the table, and that's the key. And now he prompts me again, do you want to continue with the puppy, the simpleton? And I say, wait, no, because the fox, I think, is really the only relevant question in some ways. So I said, hold on. Shouldn't he say something more along the lines of, what does it have to do with me, or why should I even care? And here GPT flatters me as usual. But that's fine. And it goes with it. Want to jump to the puppy next. See how I'm going from yes to okay. I'm still not convinced about this. And the puppy, you see, like the puppy, it's just different versions of the same stuff. What is this? Okay, that's the question we're answering this whole night. So here I'm like, all right, just stop, don't go to the kitten. The questions are about the Seder in general, right? I just want to make sure that I understand. It's like, yeah, want to wrap it up with a kitten? Yeah. But then I'm like, why is this character considered in some traditions as above the others? And the reason I'm asking that is there's a song, a popular song that my mom actually used to include later in her life in the tradition. I forget who it was composed by, but it's a contemporary thing about the four brothers finding wives, and then the one who didn't know how to ask found the most beautiful of them all, and he took her in his hands. The last verse, the last line, he took his bride's hand in his hand, and he walked straight back into the Haggadah. And so that made me feel like, oh, is he more special because he doesn't ask? So that's where this question of mine stems from. I didn't get a good answer from GPT. I don't think if that's necessarily true. It always gives you a list of stuff, but none of these I found convincing. And again, he's pushing me back to my version, but I'm already really rethinking my version. And I'm rethinking these roles because I'm not convinced. I'm like, why did you choose the kitten for this role? Great question. Great question. It's not a great question, but okay. I chose a kitten because it felt more natural metaphor for the child. It's curious, right? Blah, 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 blah. And it fits well within the menagerie that I created for you. He's like, would you like to take talk visual style for this next page? It always prompts you to the continuing, but it also offered a few other options, like a baby deer or a turtle. I kind of like the idea of a turtle, so I said, no, I like the idea of a turtle. But I'm like, okay, we're focusing on the questions, but the answers is actually the longest part of this section. So I'm like, are the answers part of the spiel? It's like, okay, nice. Turtle is a great choice. Thanks, GPT. Then yes, he said the answers are, I remembered correctly, the answers are part of the spiel. So in your animal versions could be powerful, write short, sweet responses. Want to try writing one response per animal together? I said yes, let's try. I might break down the roles when we do this section, so I'm thinking about conducting the Seder and saying, we're going to have a lot of people around this, so maybe I'm going to give a question to one participant and the answer to another. It goes ahead and gives me a draft to the owl, why do we do these things each year? Because long ago we were slaves and now we're free. Each part of the Seder helps us remember that. Why should I care? This is the fox. What does this do? What does this got to do with me? This story is yours too. We're all brought out of Egypt together. The puppy, what is this? Tonight we tell the story of how we became free. It's a special night and to remember and celebrate. And the turtle, silent, let me tell you a story. A long time ago we were slaves and we're free. And by this point I'm really rolling my eyes. This setups gives you the space to act it out, read it out, and I'm having trouble with this. The answers seem redundant. They are all the same. There's no additive value. By the way, notice I really don't care about how I'm spelling when I'm talking to it. I'm just keep my eyes on the screen and type as I type. And GPT is trying to sell me on the distinction, and it's like the real distinction is in the tone and the approach. I get it. The story is the same story, but the thing is, so the owl wants depth in his structure. The fox is pushing you away. The puppy needs clarity and warmth, not depth. And the turtle needs to be drawn in. The bottom line, it's not about the 4 children's facts, it's about the emotional posture. But there's just not enough distinction to me, and so I'm asking, so maybe 4 alternate personas that fit better the modern demographic of the kids around my Seder table. Now I'm like, alright, I'm daring to maybe break away with the tradition a little bit more. Now this is the section I think that I'm really kind of hitting my breakthrough. Yes, exactly, now we're talking. The original 4 sons are archetypes, not personalities set in stone. So, I mean, I appreciate the encouragement. You know, if GPT came back to me, it's like, you know, don't dare mess around with the tradition, I might think twice. But okay, it's encouraging me. Let's create 4 modern kids. And at first, it just kind of paraphrases what it had: the deep diver, the skeptic, the daydreamer, the quiet one. Like, it's basically just giving different names to the same personalities. This version is more real emotional dynamics than the ancient categories. And I'm like, to myself, I'm thinking, no, this is not the direction at all. So I'm being much more explicit. Around my table, I will have an Israeli 16-year-old girl, 13-year-old boy, 9-year-old girl, and 7-year-old girls, all Israelis. My kids are almost 5 and 3 Americans. I know there isn't a role for everyone. Maybe we can combine some, but I'm thinking something edgier and more real. The teenagers of the TikTok age, let's be honest. No one really wants to be around the table doing this. This is and this is it. No one really wants to be here. This is my mom's struggle. Alright? Let's address the elephant in the room. This is what I said. Let's really address the elephant in the room and not dance around it so coyly. Which is basically why I said I always found the wicked one the most engaging, because that's the only real kid we have is variations on what they call the wicked one. And now it came back to me with this, the 16-year-old Naomi. This is so long, can I just go back to my phone already? Now we're talking. And the answer would be, you're not wrong, it is long, but there's something rare here. One moment a year to slow down and ask, where did I come from? What kind of freedom do I take for granted? You can scroll later. Just give this 5 honest minutes. Maybe it will hit you differently. And I love that, because I'm going to confiscate phones at the beginning of the Seder. The 13-year-old, okay, but seriously, what does this have to do with me? Totally fair, but here's the twist. You're literally sitting at a table eating foods that tell a story, a 3,000-year-old story. You're part of it whether you ask for it or not. The real question is, what do you want to take from it? Like, this is great. This is much, much better. The 9 and 7 years old, what's going on now? Wait, why are we dipping that again? Love that. You're doing great just by being here. This night is full of weird shit. Weird stuff, dipping, questions, songs. It's all just a way to say something important's happening, and it's your job to remember. And I love that. I want to highlight that. It's your job to remember. And the little ones, they don't ask much, but they look around, soak it all in. So the one who doesn't answer, to them, this is what it means to be part of a family, a people, a story. So we model it, not perfectly, but honestly. We tell a story to them, even if they don't know the words yet. And this, by the way, this answer I don't love, because it's talking down to the kids. I mean, it's talking to the other people around the table about the kids, while I want to address the kids directly. But overall, this is a much, much better answer for what I'm trying to do here. And names the resistance and boredom's heads on, and invites each kids to locate themselves in the ritual. And doesn't sugarcoat, but doesn't shame either. This is perfect. And I was really happy with this. Yes, I'll work on the answers, but the questions are good. For my kids, we should give them a line. I don't like that they're just completely quiet, just sitting there though, right? Because part of the fun of this section is the role playing. Totally, and you're right. And then it gave me, this is the version that I actually pasted into the Haggadah at the end. I might change it a little bit. It always wants to ask me if I want to keep tweaking, and I'm like, no, this is good enough for now in terms of my structure, in terms of where I'm standing.